Zap, 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 lightning, zap, zap, lightning, lightning.
Hello everybody, it's me, the LEGO Dude, and in today's video I will be putting every LEGO Star Wars set that released in 2022 on a list from worst to best. The criteria that I'll use for this list will be the prices of these sets, their designs and minifigures, and also my own personal opinion. Don't get angry if a set that you like goes low on this list or a set that you dislike goes high on this list, because remember, part of the criteria is my own personal opinion. Starting off at the bottom of the list with number 27, we have the 4 Plus ATST. The 4 Plus ATST is a really bad set with an absolutely ridiculous price. With the things that you get in this set, it shouldn't cost a penny over $20, but it costs almost twice that at $35. Since it's a 4 Plus set, the builds are designed for little kids and they don't really look good at all. The minifigures are decent, but still, this set costs $35, which is unacceptable. In 26th place, we have the Razor Quest Microfighter. The Razor Quest Microfighter really isn't that good of a set at all. The minifigure in this set, which is the Mandalorian, is very prone to having lots of misprints when you get it, and then the build itself just isn't that good of a Microfighter build. Next up in 25th place, this might be a bit controversial because of how low I put it, and that's the Dark Trooper helmet. Lots of other people probably would have put it a little bit higher, but I think that it's a pretty bad set. If you ignore the top half of the helmet, then it looks pretty decent, but the thing is, you can't just ignore half of a set. So if you look at the entire Dark Trooper helmet, then it looks ridiculous, and it's probably the worst helmet set that LEGO have released by far. The next stretch of sets that I've put near the bottom is going to be very controversial, so brace yourselves. In 24th place, we have the Clone Character Pack. If you just ignore the price, then sure, it looks like a decent set, but for $15, it really doesn't look like it's worth it. Additionally to this, the minifigures aren't that good with a reuse of the Clone Commander when instead there should have been a new Clone Trooper added. In 23rd place, we have the Hoth Character Pack, which mostly suffers from the same problems as the Clone Character Pack. If you ignore the price, then sure, it looks okay, but then for $15, it really doesn't look like it's worth it. Battle Packs just a couple of years ago would have 4 minifigures and a couple of decent sized builds, but now with these new small character packs, it costs the same price for only 3 minifigures and 2 very small builds. Some people would say that the reason for this is inflation, but that only covers part of it. The sets have gotten way smaller than the rate that inflation is going at, and also LEGO are still making record profits, so it doesn't make sense to me why these sets are so small but cost so much. In 22nd place, we have the Death Star Trench Run diorama. The build for this set is really good because it's designed to be a diorama display set, but it's very overpriced. A trend that you might notice throughout this video is that a lot of these sets are going to be placing low, not because they're bad, but because of how overpriced they are. Next up in 21st place, we have Boba Fett's Palace. Boba Fett's Palace also suffers from being overpriced, and then there's some things about it that I personally don't like. I don't like how they just went with an all playset approach when they could have made a much nicer design for it, and I also don't like how they changed the design on the outside to something that doesn't look so good. I would have been fine with the design change if they decided to come up with something new that actually looks pretty decent, but instead they went with this idea and it just doesn't work out for this set. Next up in 20th place is the Death Star Trash Compactor diorama. This set has the same problems as the Death Star Trench Run diorama, but the only thing that makes it go higher is all the minifigures, which are really good, and I like it a little bit more than the Trench Run set. Next up in 19th place is the Obi-Wan vs. Darth Vader set. If you asked me a couple months ago, I would have put this all the way down in 26th place, but now that it's been out for a bit longer, I don't hate it as much as I used to when it first was revealed, so I'll put it in 19th place. Next up in 18th place, I have the Mandalorian's helmet. I just really don't like this helmet so much, and it also has some major inaccuracies like the length and width of the visors, which really messes with how it's supposed to look. Next up in 17th place, I have the Advent Calendar. This Advent Calendar is really good, but overall, I think that most Advent Calendars would be rated very lowly, so I think that a 17th place finish for a really good Advent Calendar is just about right. In 16th place, I have Luke Skywalker's helmet. A lot of people really like this set, and it has a pretty good price, but I personally don't like it that much, and the visor especially I don't like. I think that the visor makes it look really goofy, and if it didn't have the visor, then I would place it much more highly, but because of the visor specifically, I'm placing it a lot lower. Next up in 15th place, I have the Ambush on Ferrix. The Ambush on Ferrix has a really good build and some good minifigures, but it's really overpriced. The only reason that it's placed above a few other sets is because Andor was such a good show, so I think that that raises it up a few places. Next up in 14th place, I have the Dagobah Training. The Dagobah Training is a really good diorama set, and I think that it's priced pretty fairly, but I think that the only reason that it's not placed higher is because since this was such a good year for LEGO Star Wars, the other 13 sets are just better. Next up in 13th place, I have Obi-Wan Starfighter. Obi-Wan Starfighter is a pretty good set, just like most sets that are similar to it are, but it does have a pretty big problem with all all the gaps in between the three sections. You would think that these gaps would be mostly unseen, but from most angles that you look at the starship form, you can clearly see these gaps and they're very annoying. It's not a large deal-breaking issue, but it still is a big issue, which is why Obi-Wan Starfighter is only 13th. In 12th place, I have the Hoth ATST. I think that the Hoth ATST was a pretty good set, and I think it's better than Obi-Wan Starfighter, but that's about as high as it's gonna get. I don't particularly like the new design they went with for the Hoth ATST, but I understand why a lot of people do, and it doesn't look that bad either. In 11th place, I have the Mandalorian's N1 Starfighter. It has a really good build and some really good minifigures, but for the $60 price tag, I don't think it offers enough. This set costs $60, but when I look at it, it looks like it's only worth more about $40. If it wasn't so expensive, then I probably would have avoided it within the top 5, but since it costs so much, I can only put it in 11th place. Kicking off the top 10 for 2022, I have the Republic Fighter Tank in 10th place. Even though the build isn't that good in my opinion, the minifigures are absolutely amazing, and for $40, it isn't too much overpriced. I think overall this set is extremely good and definitely goes well in 10th place. Next up in 9th place, I have the Lars Homestead. This set doesn't really have a price because it was a promotional set for May 4th, but if you just look at the set itself, it's an extremely good set. The design of the build is really good, and also the one minifigure included, Beru Lars, is a brand new minifigure to LEGO Star Wars, and I think that it was a very good minifigure to include in this set. Next up in 8th place, I have the Snowtrooper Battle Pack. The Snowtrooper Battle Pack was a really good battle pack with a bunch of good minifigures, and the builds were also good, but like a lot of other sets this year, it has the problem of being overpriced. It isn't as overpriced as a lot of other sets this year, but it still is overpriced. If you're able to get it on a deal of say 20% off though, which is what it is on most places right now, then it would definitely merit its spot in 8th place. Next up in 7th place, I have a very controversial set, which is the ATTE. Most people probably would have placed it in the top 3 or down near the middle, but I decided that 7th place was a pretty good spot for it. Some of the bigger issues with it are how all the clone troopers have mispointed helmets, which look very ugly, and also how there was a spider droid included instead of a crab droid. For the first one, you can tell why it's a controversy right off the bat, but for the second one, it's a controversy because the crab droid was clearly in Revenge of the Sith on the Battle of Utapau, which this ATTE is based on, and the spider droid wasn't in that movie at all, but for some reason they decided to include a spider droid instead of making a brand new crab droid. These are some pretty big issues and they're very annoying, but you can't just overlook how good the rest of the stuff in the ATTE is, which is why it's still in 7th place. For the last few sets, they don't really have too many flaws or any flaws at all, so they're going to be placed based off of my personal preference. In 6th place, we have the BD-1. The BD-1 is a very good buildable character and probably the best one they released so far, but unfortunately it falls just outside of the top 5 because I think that there's actually 5 sets better than it. Breaking our top 5 in 5th place, I have the UCS Luke's Landspeeder. The UCS Luke's Landspeeder is an extremely good and detailed set, but the only reason I put it 5th is because it's Luke's Landspeeder. I can't seriously put it any higher no matter how good it is because it's just Luke's Landspeeder, which is just a meme set at this point. If Luke's Landspeeder wasn't such a meme set, then I probably would have placed this in my top 3 at least. Next up in 4th place, I have the UCS Razor Quest. The UCS Razor Quest is a very good, ginormous, detailed set, but for the $600 price tag, I feel like it's just a little bit overpriced. For this set, it does feel like it costs a little bit too much for what you're getting, but it's not too far out of the range, so if you're able to get it at a discount, then it should be pretty much worth it. Now moving on to the podium, I have the Dark Trooper Attack in 3rd place. For the entire top 3, it was really hard to decide, and I was rotating them around deciding which one I wanted to go where, but I decided for 3rd place that's where the Dark Trooper Attack would go. This is an absolutely top class amazing set which has amazing minifigures and amazing build, and it isn't overpriced either. If you haven't got this set already, I would really recommend buying it because it's probably one of the best opportunities to get an amazing set ever. Next up for 2nd place, the set that I have here might be a bit controversial, and that set is Cad Bane's ship, the Justifier. A lot of people think that the Justifier is overpriced because of how low a piece count it has and about how high the price is, but it's actually not that overpriced when you really look at it. I have a video about why price per piece doesn't make sense planned soon, but basically the rundown is price per piece is just completely illogical. This set uses a lot of big pieces which already makes it worth more, and additionally to this, it has an absolutely amazing design and a bunch of awesome minifigures. A lot of people might place it a lot lower, but for me it goes in 2nd place. And now we have the set at the top of the pile, the best set in 2022, and that is the Inquisitor Scythe Transport. The Inquisitor Scythe Transport has an absolutely amazing design, and the ships that they make in black with the red windows always turn out good, like the Rector Krennic Shuttle, Kylo Ren Shuttle, and now also the Inquisitor Scythe Transport. This set also has a very spacious interior with space for all of the minifigures and more if you wanted to add in some more, and also the minifigures included themselves are also very good. At $100, this set is definitely worth it without even having a discount, and if you are able to get it on discount, then that's an absolutely amazing deal. Alright everybody, that's everything for today's video. Tell me your placements for all of these sets in the comment section down below. Do you mostly agree with my list, or do you think that a lot of my placement of these sets wasn't that good? And one more thing before you leave, please remember to hit the subscribe button, ring the notifications bell, and leave a like on the video. Bye! Created by The Lego Dude. Produced by The Lego Dude. Directed by The Lego Dude. Paid for by The Lego Dude. Edited by The Lego Dude. Thank you for watching, please subscribe and leave a like.